The wetlands of northern Florida, the swamp. These murky waters of the ancient alligator proved a perfect breeding ground for a football dynasty hatched by Steve Spurrier, but were far less hospitable to successor Ron Zook. Now Urban Meyer and a new generation of Gators are attempting to recapture the aura of this foreboding place, but have found out the hard way about a world in which only the strong survive.
He's in! Touchdown! Urban Meyer wins his SEC opener. Flexed out, rolls right, throws an interception. Alabama score a wire-to-wire win. The handoff around the pop to the right side and turn to the corner. Touchdown. LSU wins the game. He's looking for the end zone. He dives in. It is a touchdown! 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 And the Florida Gators have beaten the Georgia Bulldogs. This will be their first time ever beating the Gators in Southeastern Conference play.
So as the seasonal sun begins to set, the Gators have lured their final and most desirable victim of all into the swamp. With one final chance to prove if they are truly predators or prey. SEC on CBS a couple of hours ago. A pregame ritual instituted this year by first-year head coach Urban Meyer, the Gator Walk. And among those making the stroll, Mike DeGore, fifth-year senior who starts his 49th game this afternoon. The Florida Gator squad taking the field early as part of Senior Day festivities this afternoon as a crowd that will approach 90,000 gathers for the 50th renewal of Florida State against the University of Florida. Mike DeGore from Melbourne, Florida.
May, Florida, joined by his parents Ron and Beverly, brother Ron and girlfriend Lauren Schneider, number 68, team captain Mike DeGore! Jimmy Herring and brother.
One of 20 seniors who make this stride for the final time this afternoon, and good afternoon, everybody. Vern Lundquist along with Todd Blackledge and Tracy Wolfson. These two teams have had remarkably similar seasons. In mid-October, they were both undefeated, ranked in the top 5, but in the last 6 weeks, things have gone sour. Florida State has lost to 3 unranked opponents. The University of Florida has also lost 3, the most bitter of which was an 8-point defeat to Steve Spurrier in South Carolina 2 weeks ago. Nevertheless, they've had an open week to regroup and get ready for this. This is Urban Meyer's first and Bobby Bowden's 32nd.
This is bragging rights. This is the one that divides the homes in Florida. And this is one that a lot of people across this country love to watch.
It's a funny thing, when you go out on the field, it's kind of like they've got half the kids you tried to recruit, you got half the kids they tried to recruit, then of course they know each other, and so it makes a delightful setting for a ball game, you know, but it is a tough rivalry now because neither one of us want to lose it.
Bobby Bowden in his 30th year at Florida State. This his 32nd ball game. Here come the Seminoles. 7-3 against 7-3, not bad anywhere else, but here not good, Todd, right?
Well, even if there's no national championship implications, it's still huge, as the coaches said, because it's about pride, it's about bragging rights, it's about recruiting, which is very important, and both teams want to create some momentum to finish the season. For Florida State, they want to try to end a very rare 2-game losing streak and build some momentum by winning the state championship today and then going to Jacksonville and winning the ACC championship next week. If they do that, regardless of their record, they're in a BCS bowl game. For Florida, their hopes of playing in their conference championship ended 2 weeks ago in Columbia. They want to finish undefeated at home. Retaking the Swamp was one of the major goals for Urban Meyer when he came to Florida. They want to build momentum into their bowl preparations and into what I think will be one of the most critical things, their off-season program this winter at the University of Florida.
Both teams on the field. Beautiful afternoon. We're set. FSU and the Gators. The kick coming up right after this. Ben Hill Griffin Stadium, Florida Field, Gainesville, home of the University of Florida Gators. This game, as are all of our games. The SEC on CBS, brought to you in high definition. Balmy day in Florida, 76 degrees, 48% humidity, winds out of the northeast at 6. No problems with rain in the forecast. Gators won the toss. They deferred to the second half. Florida State will get the ball. These two teams met for the first time in 1958, dictated by the Florida State legislature. Florida leads the series 28-19-2. Seminoles have had the better of it recently. Last year's victory went to this bunch in Tallahassee. Here's Jonathan Phillips wearing number 38. For a moment I had a flashback and thought it was Matt Petrovich. Here's the kick, and it's going to chase Kenny O'Neill to the goal line near side. He's got great speed, but you can't do much with speed if there's terrific downfield coverage led by Tony Joyner, number 19.
And it started with the kick. The kick was perfectly placed right on the 1-yard line, right on the corner. So O'Neill couldn't go right. He had to come back to the left, and because of that, it allowed the Florida coverage team to get down there, and that will be a big key all day, is covering kicks, because both of these teams have explosive guys that can make plays returning it.
A redshirt sophomore is in at quarterback. He has started every game this year, Drew Weatherford. His team has it. At the 16, he'll throw on play action out of the backfield to the fullback, James Coleman. And he is out near the 17-yard line. Drew Weatherford from Land O'Lakes, Florida, said no, it has nothing to do with the butter. Had a great start to this year, but you see down at the bottom, 15 TDs, 15 interceptions. 11 of those interceptions have come recently.
Yeah, 5 in the last 2 games, and I think it's just been a young quarterback trying to force things down the field, and he's thrown into coverage some, but he's had 2 weeks to prepare for the Florida Gators.
Here's Lorenzo Booker, who gets the start at tailback, and Jarvis Herring, one of the seniors, is there to knock him down. As third down is forthcoming, let's set this Florida State offense up front. Ron Lunford gets his first start of the season today. David Castillo, Cornelius Lewis, David Overmeyer. Booker in the backfield with Coleman, Willie Reed, and Chris Davis are the wideouts. And the tight end is Donnie Carter. All presented by BP. 3rd and 5. Clock has been stopped as one of the officials hurries on and indicates that Florida State called timeout. I'm just guessing that came from the sideline.
It looked like it because the guys running out with the water bottles were there before any of the Florida State players knew what was going on.
We're just underway in Gainesville, Florida State, Florida. Back in Gainesville, 3rd down 5, 0-0. Let's check the Florida defense. Cohen, Thomas, Stephen Harris, Jeremy Mincy, the front 4. McCullough, Seiler, and Earl Everett. The linebacking core, Webb, Nelson, Jarvis Herring, Reggie Lewis in the secondary.
And one of the key things, if you're going against Urban Meyer's defense this year, is avoiding 3rd down and 7+. And for Florida State's first 3rd down play, 3rd and 5. So a lot more manageable against this Gator defense.
Weatherford. Draw play. Might have gotten it.
It's funny, one of the things Drew Weatherford said to us is, over the last several weeks, when we get 3rd and 5 or more, teams have not respected our running game at all. They've just pinned their ears back and come after the quarterback. So the first 3rd down play, not only do they run, but they run it with the quarterback. Drew Weatherford, not known as a runner, but did a nice job of protecting the football and going straight ahead north and south towards that first down mark.
That dictates a measurement, so they will bring the chain on. Ooh,
wow.
Smidgen. I thought for just a second he might roll the dice. But
yeah, I thought he might too. That's a fall forward, but you don't want to take the chance of a bad snap or something and giving Florida great field position right away.
Chris Hall is on the punt. Has had an inconsistent year. Chad Jackson is deep. Vernell Brown, who had this chore most of the year, is out with a broken leg, and Jackson will let this one go. It gets a fine Florida State roll and comes to a stop at the 32-yard line. So Chris Hall adds 10 to his season average. That was good to equal his number, 48. And here comes Chris Leak, whose numbers, speaking of, have been down considerably as this junior from Charlotte, North Carolina, tries to adapt to the spread option and Urban Meyer to him.
And third offensive coordinator in 3 years. And I've got to say now, we saw him against Georgia after a week off after looking very poor in the LSU game. In the last 3 games, 2 wins and a loss, I think the Florida offense and Chris Leak have looked much, much better.
They open with a fullback. That's Billy Latsko, and Marcus Manson, play fake. Leak goes deep for Dallas Baker. Good double coverage. And Baker, who's playing with an injured rib, sustained a couple of weeks ago, can't hang on.
Yeah, a broken rib and a punctured lung in the Georgia game, and this is not what you want to see your first reception attempt, having to go up in the air with a free safety coming right for that midsection. Dallas Baker, a tall receiver, not able to climb the ladder and catch that one.
Second down 10. Time called. Wow. Florida State, they've used their second. My goodness.
Well, better to waste them in the first half than in the second half, that's for sure.
So Bobby Bowden's Florida State team has used its second. One on offense. That's Mickey Andrews, the defensive coordinator. The umpire called time and turned and pointed to Florida State.
Yeah, Andre Fluellen, number 96, was the guy that they were conferring with.
Time has been called, and it is charged to Florida State.
Welcome back to Gainesville. Florida has one more thing riding on this game, and that's a sweep of their rivals. The last time they defeated Tennessee, Georgia, and Florida State in one season was in 1995. They've only done it 3 times in school history. Urban Meyer looks at this as just an extra motivation to win and end the season on a high note. He told me yesterday it's not a lost season. We can still finish 9-3, and that would be an excellent year. We just need to go out and win one for the seniors. Guys, back to you.
Okay, thank you, Tracy.
Excellent point. 9-3, beat your 3 biggest rivalries, go undefeated at home in your first year for Urban Meyer. Pretty strong.
Out of the spread, Manson and Keyston Moore are on. Here's Leak, shovel pass underneath to Keyston Moore, the freshman from Arlington, Texas. Moore started the first 2 games this year, and Marcus Manson was the starting running back today. Up front, Hand Washington, Mike DeGore, 49th start, 1 off of the school record. Steve Rissler, the junior, and Lance Butler, the senior. Deshaun Wynn is the running back. Jackson, Cornelius, Dallas Baker, the wideouts, and Tate Casey is the tight end. 3rd down and 4. 49 consecutive starts for the man who will snap the ball. Leak back, steps up, sacked. He was sacked 6 times 2 weeks ago against South Carolina. This is a very aggressive Florida State defense. They now have their 34th sack of the year.
And the 7th sack for Broderick Bunkley. That's him right there, number 52. He is just going to blow in there off the ball. He's having a phenomenal year. A little stunt inside, and you see the guard, Tavares Washington, turned his head away from the stunt. He took his eyes off the movement inside, and Bunkley came free right to the quarterback.
Eric Wilbur will punt. FSU outstanding with punt returns. Willie Reed is back. Wilbur has this one dropped, and Reed is bouncing as he picks up the football on one hop. He's down at the 27-yard line. Tackle made by number 18, Tremaine McCollum.
Well, if you're Florida, you must protect Chris Leak to give him a chance. That time they turned the best defensive lineman for Florida State loose and had to punt.
We begin our coverage of NCAA basketball next Saturday. North Carolina at 8th-ranked Kentucky. That's the beginning of an action-packed day, as the Army-Navy game will be played in Philadelphia, 2:30 Eastern Time, and then we'll wrap up the afternoon of sports coverage with the SEC Championship game, Georgia-LSU, next Saturday, 6 o'clock Eastern Time from the Georgia Dome in Atlanta. Florida State, 2 timeouts called, the second because of an equipment malfunction, but they were charged with a team timeout. Weatherford, the quarterback. Booker to the 31. It's Leon Washington, beg your pardon, number 3 instead of 28. And let's go back to New York and spend a moment with Tim Brando.
Vern, Iowa State, for the second straight year, trying to get to the Big 12 championship game, and Kansas has tied it up 21-all. Brian Luke to Dexton Fields. Remember last year at Ames, Iowa State lost to Missouri 17-14. This year, they have a chance to get there if they win, but if they don't, Colorado's going. Vern?
I don't know if anybody wants to win that side to go play Texas the way it looks.
Second down, Washington still in the backfield. Weatherford doesn't find anybody open. He's sacked. Stephen Harris, his first full sack of the year.
And that's a coverage sack. I mean, Drew Weatherford, a young quarterback, has got to get rid of the football. He's got enough time to throw. It's pretty good protection in the beginning. He's got time. He's got to get rid of it if he doesn't feel it happening. Now, a lot of changes on this offensive front for Florida State. Take a look at what the keys are. When Florida State has the football, they must feature their running backs. They get Leon Washington back for the first time in 3 weeks. And on defense, Florida has to eliminate big plays. That's been their problem in their losses this year.
3rd and 9. Starts by the Florida defense. Whoa, wow. And Mincy either did not hear the whistle blow or he ignored it.
Yeah, either way, a little hit for good measure. Again, Drew Weatherford, his first game playing in the Florida State rivalry. They played at Clemson 2 weeks ago, which is a very loud stadium, probably the loudest in the ACC. But here at the Swamp's a little different deal.
Dead ball, delay a game against the offense. 5-yard penalty, 3rd down. We also have dead ball, personal foul against the defense. That's a 15-yard penalty, automatic 1st down.
I don't think you can ignore the hit from Mincy. I don't know how you can say it didn't happen.
No,
exactly.
They just called a personal foul.
I'm up to the crowd's reacting. That's.
And here's the clock was out. Drew Weatherford and Mincy should have seen, even if he doesn't hear the whistle, he sees everybody stop.
Absolutely.
And he's got to pull off on that. This is an SEC officiating crew. The last time these two teams played here in Gainesville was an ACC crew. There was an ACC crew last year in Tallahassee. And that time, I think a good call against Jeremy Mincy.
And that game here 2 years ago was, to be kind, poorly officiated.
Yeah.
There's the handoff. Washington speeds around the corner and gets out near the 45-yard line. That's a gain of 11.
Well, I think Leon Washington looks okay. I mean, he injured his ankle. He missed the last 2 games. He came back to practice this week. The question was, would he be able to cut and move? Watch him bounce this thing to the outside. He shows that he's got the ability, the speed to get it to the outside, and he's a little stronger than Booker, can break arm tackle. Good acceleration to get to the edge. Good blocking there by the tight end, Donnie Carter.
In that game here 2 years ago, which was a thriller, 38-34 Florida State, Leon Washington, big play with kick returns and punt returns. Here's Chris Davis number 5, and that's going to be a first down for Florida State at the 41 after the gain of 11. Let's go back to New York and check in with Jim.
Vern, this may be an historic moment. First time ever a Connecticut football update. All right, the Huskies, Lou Allen scores on a 60-yard run against South Florida. Remember, the Bulls are trying to hang tough with West Virginia. They get them at home next week for a possible BCS berth. And Iowa State and Kansas, we should update, are now into overtime, tied at 21.
All right. How about we've had a UConn update before. Yes, we have. Here's the handoff to the 40-yard line, Washington.
Well, you mentioned it was a balmy day here, 32 degrees up there in Yukon today. A little different than what the Tampa weather would be for the South Florida Bulls.
I caught a little bit of the start of the Colgate New Hampshire game today.
Looked nice, didn't it?
And I was really pleased with our assignment. Quite glad that we were in Gainesville. Second down and 8. 9 minutes to go, first quarter. B.J. Dean is the fullback now. Here's Weatherford changing. And a quick snap. Washington leans out to the 37-yard line.
When we talked to Charlie Strong and Greg Madison, the two defensive coordinators at Florida yesterday, they both said, we don't want to get lulled to sleep in thinking that Florida State is a pure passing team. There's Charlie Strong. The last couple weeks, it looks like they've abandoned their running game. Now they've got Washington and Booker back healthy, 2 fresh sets of legs on the backs, and I think to take pressure off Drew Weatherford, Florida State will run the ball more today than they've run in the last several weeks.
Now Lorenzo Booker is on the field. He and Coleman flank Drew Weatherford, 3rd and 5. Quarterback draw again, and Weatherford, nice move. That'll be close. Might dictate another measurement here.
Well, if they're inches short this time, I think they will go because they're on the Florida side of the 50-yard line. It's going to be awful close again. Second time we've seen a quarterback draw on 3rd down and less than 7 yards. Drew Weatherford, nice job of finding a crease and then stretching forward with the football.
Drew Weatherford got his chance to start when Wyatt Sexton, who is the son of Billy and Joy Sexton, the running backs coach. Wyatt Sexton diagnosed with Lyme disease and out for the year. He is trying to work out, and that gave Weatherford his opportunity. One in a battle with Xavier Lee. 4th and inches, they go. Bounce it outside. That's close. That is close. Earl Everett, number 30, with the tackle.
Normally on that short of a play, you don't want to bounce. And watch Booker is going to kind of hit it in and try to bounce it out to the right. Good penetration by Jarvis Herring. Or Brandon Seiler was the first guy in there to absorb the block of the fullback, and that forced Booker to bounce it outside. And when he did, Everett was there to clean it up. 4th and inches, I mean, you want to go in a straight line as much as possible, but because of the penetration by Seiler, he had to bounce it outside a little bit. No way. They lost yardage. Earl Everett gets credit for the tackle, but Brandon Seiler got the penetration that forced the play to spill outside. James Coleman, the fullback, was assigned to block Seiler and didn't get it done. Watch number 40, Brandon Seiler. Forces the play outside. Everett there, leading tackler on the team, and a big 4th down stop for the Gators.
We are midway through the first quarter. Let's introduce you to the Gator defensive, beg your pardon, Florida State defensive 11. Boston, Bunkley, Fluellen, and Darrell Burston. Ernie Sims, Buster Davis, A.J. Nicholson, the linebackers. And the secondary, Tony Carter, Roger Williams, Kyler Hall, and J.R. Bryant. They have been, Todd, susceptible at the corners.
Yeah, well, they're young at the corners. I mean, they lost their best corner in the summer, Antonio Cromartie, to a knee injury. Gerard Ross, who started the first 6 games, has been out with a knee the last 3 or 4 weeks. So they're very young at the corner.
There's a handoff to Marcus Manson. Fine pursuit by Florida State. Nothing there. Now, during the timeout while we were away, Urban Meyer and Charlie Strong out with Rocky Good, the referee.
I think they're still talking about the personal foul and the fact that Jeremy Mincey couldn't hear because of the crowd noise. It set him back a little bit, but you don't want to take any aggressiveness away from Jeremy Mincey because he's a high motor guy, and so you don't want anything to slow him down in the game.
Loss on the last play. It's second down. Hanson goes right off a give from Leak. And that will set up a 3rd and long as we check Todd's keys for Florida.
Well, when Florida has the football, I think they've got to do a good job of keeping Florida State off balance on defense. Misdirection, some trick plays, bootlegs, do some different things with Chris Leak. Florida State on defense, they must get pressure and then hit Chris Leak when they get there. They did it on the first series, and if Florida just drops back in the same position the whole game, Florida State will be able to do that. That's why I think that movement of the quarterback and a little misdirection stuff is very critical for the Gators.
3rd down 8.
They got the play off.
That'll cost them 5.
Both quarterbacks struggle a little bit with the play clock.
Dead ball. Delay game. Offense in the 12. Penalty 5 yards. Previous spot. Still 3rd down.
With a redshirt freshman quarterback, that's somewhat understandable on the road. With a junior quarterback, a 3-year starter, you don't expect that to happen on a critical 3rd down play. I know it's early in the ball game, but 3rd and very long now against this Florida State defense.
Florida State will rush 3. Leak, despite the 3-man rush, in real trouble and sacked for the 2nd time by Ernie Sims. It's his first, 2nd for the Seminoles, and 4th down coming up.
But Marcelo Church, number 39, is the guy who got pressure. He's a linebacker who lined up as a defensive end, and he beat the right tackle. And that forced Chris Leak to get out of the pocket, and Ernie Sims was there for the sack. But Marcelo Church, because of injuries at the defensive end position, has been forced to play some reps at defensive end. That time, he forced a sack.
Eric Wilbur to punt for the 2nd time. Line drives this one, and Willie Reed steps back, grabs it at the 35. Fine downfield coverage. 41-yard punt, 1-yard return, Tuesday on CBS. A hot air balloon ride turns out to be more dangerous than it looks. Get in on the adventure with the 3-time Emmy-winning Amazing Race Tuesday after NCIS on CBS, America's #1 network.
Now, you mentioned 2 weeks ago when they played in South Carolina, Chris Leak was sacked 6 times. And not all those sacks were the result of bad offensive line play. Some cases the backs made a mistake. Some cases Chris Leak held onto the ball. 2 sacks in the ball game today, both the result of the offensive line getting beat, or in the first case, just totally turning a guy loose on the inside.
3rd running back on now, Anton Smith, number 23. Is the tailback. Here's Weatherford, flips it out to him, one-on-one in the corner. Todd McCullough gives chase, and the tackle is made after McCullough gets there by D. Webb, number 15.
Well, that play has been part of the Florida State offensive repertoire for a long time. I can remember Warwick Dunn playing for the Seminoles, and that little flare pass. They look downfield, and then they flip it out to the flare, and it's as much as anything, it's getting the ball in the hands of a good runner out in space.
Bobby Bowden turns 76. He may lead Joe Paterno in wins, but he trails him in age by a couple of years.
I don't think he'll catch him.
And there's the handoff, Anton Smith. Bobby Bowden began his career at Samford and then went to West Virginia. He's in his 30th year here. 358 career wins. You look at that, and I find this so striking. In 40 years as a head coach, 2 losing seasons. 2. One at West Virginia, they were 4-7, and his first at Florida State in 76, they were 5-6. 3rd down. Weatherford with time goes left, tipped and incomplete. Fine coverage by D. Webb, number 15, on Willie Reed.
Well, that's a big play for D. Webb because he's had some problems the last few weeks, and he had some problems with Sidney Rice up in Columbia 2 weeks ago. The first time they throw at him, he's in great position. He makes a nice play on the football, and he forces Florida State to punt. You know, a quarterback playing as much man as they want in the Florida defense, you you've got to have a lot of confidence, and that getting a good play on your first play where they throw at you, very important.
That brings on Chris Hall for the second time. And Chad Jackson will let this bounce. It hops out of bounds at the 29-yard line. Nothing here. Let's go back to the studio for a game-changing performance powered by Punter. Here's Phil.
Well, somebody, Vern, had to back into the Big 12 North title. Iowa State once led 14-3 in overtime. Brett Culbertson misses from 40 yards. That means Scott Webb's 34-yarder for the Fighting Manginos gets Kansas bowl eligible. And for the second straight year, Iowa State, with control of its destiny, loses in overtime, and Colorado will play Texas in the Big 12 title game.
Oh, my goodness. Things are not all right in Ames. Here's Leak over the right side, caught by Chad Jackson. That's his 73rd catch of the year. They lost Andre Caldwell, game 3 against Tennessee. Jackson has become the go-to receiver. 73 catches for the season now.
Job on first down, calling for the straight drop back pass. Here's Jackson in the slot. He's just going to run a little short crossing route right in front of the face of Chris Leak. Good protection. Get him the football. Let him turn upfield running.
First down and 10 after the gain of 15. And that is Deshaun Wynn, number 21. You know, Chad Jackson's 73 receptions make him now the number 2 receiver in a single season all time. He was shared that spot with Riddell Anthony and Carlos Alvarez back in 1969. Caught 88 passes, almost all of them from a quarterback named John Reeves. Some of us remember more vividly than others. Second down and 9. Deshaun Wynn belted behind the line. Wow, nice defensive play by Alex Boston, number 98.
When this season started for Florida, their offense was going to be based around Chris Leak as a thrower and 4 fast wide receivers. And then Andre Caldwell got hurt, broken leg in the Tennessee game, and then the other receivers have had their share of injuries. And so now this Florida offense has changed. I mean, they're playing more with a tight end, Tate Casey, and more with a fullback or an H-back in Billy Latsko. It's a different looking offense by necessity.
Well, now they do have 4 wides, and it's a 3-man rush. Leak steps up, goes deep. He's got Cornelius.
Nice catch.
Jamel Cornelius, diving catch at the 35-yard line. Cornelius, who in the absence of Andre Caldwell had a great day at Kentucky.
Well, whenever you play cover 2, there's a soft spot right in the middle. Watch the safety split, and that's going to open up the middle for Caldwell. And a beautifully thrown ball by Chris Leak. There's the opening, the soft part of the defense, and Leak throws it right in there.
Jamel Cornelius, 23 yards, and Phil Troutwine is in a tackle as an eligible tight end now, wearing number 86. It's a draw play, so he was a decoy, and Deshaun Wynn dances to the 21-yard line. There is a fumble. Let's see if he was ruled down before he lost the ball. I believe that is the call. Yes. First down, Florida.
Well, Vern, you mentioned Phil Troutwine, who's a backup tackle. He's in there as a tight end. Now, Billy Latsko is going to lead this play on the outside, and this is where the Florida offense has changed. More tight end, more fullback, and Billy Latsko has really become a valuable weapon. He's a great leverage player and an excellent lead blocker.
That's a first down. Here's Leak rolling out, lets it go, has a man at the 15-yard line. Chad Jackson with another catch.
And they're moving Chris Leak. You see, they move him out of the pocket. They don't set him up in the same spot every time. A little misdirection. Billy Latsko is out there lead blocking in front. Move your quarterback. Chris Leak likes to play on the move. He likes to throw the football on the move. He doesn't like to just stay in the pocket every play. And the Florida coaches have recognized that that's one of his strengths and something he enjoys, and they've built their offense more into it that way.
Another measurement forthcoming now as Jackson makes the catch, and he's just short.
We talked about Billy Latsko, and it's an amazing story because, you know, they didn't really know where to put him. I mean, they moved him over to defense because they didn't think in their offense they needed a guy like him, so they put him at linebacker. He was a backup linebacker, third string, special teams guy, and then when they started getting some injuries to their receivers, they said, well, let's bring him back over to offense and see if we can use him as an H-back or whatever. And they found out, hey, you know what, this guy's really good. I mean, he's a great blocker. He's a tough guy, brings some toughness to our offense. And I think he's a big reason why the Florida offense has improved.
And he is there on second down, less than a foot. Quarterback's draw, Leak, comes left. First down and goal for the Gators. Ernie Sims was the man closest when Leak hit the turf. And Billy Latsko leading the way, number 42.
He's not a glamorous guy, knows what his role is. Lead blocker, pass protection. And he's relishing it right now.
That could be a description of me. 44 trips, 26 touchdowns, and 8 field goals. So the touchdown percentage just slightly higher than the NCAA average. First and goal, Florida, scoreless game. Baker in motion, draw play. Marcus Manson, number 2, the redshirt freshman from Tuscaloosa, Alabama. That is the final play of the first quarter. Urban Meyer, first-year head coach. His team 7-3. Florida State, Bobby Bowden, head coach. His team 7-3. That's the end of the first. We'll return to Gainesville after this message and a word from your local station. We welcome you back to Gainesville. Second down and goal. First play of the second quarter. A scoreless game thus far. Vern Lundquist, Todd Blackledge, Tracy Wolfson. The 50th meeting between these two in-state rivals. Both teams 14 plays thus far.
Ninth play of this drive for Florida. This drive started back on their own 29-yard line.
Seminoles have 4 down. They will bring 3. They zone blitz. Actually, the pass caught. Touchdown, Chad Jackson. Jackson's 9th touchdown catch of this season, 17th thrown by Chris Leak. Hetland on for the extra point. And it's good. 23rd straight game with a pass reception, and the 3rd with a touchdown.
It started with excellent pass protection. Good blend of run and pass. Chris Leak right on target for the touchdown. Florida's first touchdown is going to be our playbook presented by Hartford. This is Marcus Manson, a running back. Because he's out here, he draws coverage from a corner. You create a mismatch in here with Chad Jackson working against the safety and linebacker. And he's going to get right in between the safety and linebackers for the touchdown, right in the soft spot of the defense. You create a matchup by formation, and Chris Leak puts the money right where it needs to be. Excellent job of using formation to create the matchup you wanted. And Florida on the board first. And if you're a Florida State fan, you don't like that because the 7 games they won this year, they scored first. The 3 games they lost, their opponents scored first.
Playbook presented by the Hartford, and Chad Jackson resting now with his 9th touchdown catch of the season. Kenny O'Neill and Fred Rouse, a couple of speedsters are deep as Jonathan Phillips will kick off. He does, and this one middle of the field, 2 yards in. Fred Rouse said to Kenny O'Neill, stay where you are. Touchback. Watch an exclusive SEC College Football Highlight Show and get complete coverage from all of today's action. Check it out tonight on CBSSportsline.com. Drew Weatherford. Thus far in the game, he's thrown 4, completed 3 for 18 yards. On that last drive, the touchdown drive, Leak was 4 of 4. From the eye, draw play, Leon Washington around the tackle spot and out to the 28-yard line. We go back and spend a moment with Tim Brando in New York.
Vernon Todd, I've got a Bedlam Series update for you. Rhett Bomar, the Oklahoma quarterback, just his 7th touchdown pass of the year, 12-yarder to Joaquin Iglesias. Now in the second quarter, Oklahoma leading Oklahoma State 14-0. Vern?
All right, thank you, Timmy. Second down and 2 here. And again, the handoff. They come to the left side. Washington, first down, Florida State out near the 36-yard line. Matt Root, the tight end. Drew Weatherford mentioned that he got the start when Wyatt Sexton went down with Lyme's disease, and then Xavier Lee, highly recruited freshman quarterback. They battled. Weatherford got it. He started all year. Bobby Bowden said they're scheming against him now.
Well, they're scheming against him a little bit more by rushing 3 and dropping 8, but they're taking some pressure off him today by running the football, and I think that's smart.
They get nothing on this. Well, Drew Weatherford grew up, was born in Dallas. He's one of 9 children, the youngest of whom died, but Drew's the 4th. We were chatting with him. Tracy Wolfson said, you became a Florida State fan when you were 8. Where'd you live before that? He said, Dallas. Said, my dad played for SMU, and my grandfather played for SMU. He was Doak Walker's backup. And his father, there's Billy, and his mom, Kathy, played in 1971 for Hayden Fry. Inside, dropped. That was Dakota Fagg, number 81.
Well, Avery Atkins was on coverage, but Jarvis Herring is the guy who created the bobble. Atkins in pretty good position, but watch the hit by Herring is going to knock the ball loose. The hit in the back forced that ball to come out. And now 3rd down and long against this Florida defense. Again, if you get 3rd and 7 plus or 3rd and 10 plus, very, very difficult. Only 16% conversion, 3rd and 10 plus against them.
And this one is 12. Safety blitz is threatened. Safety blitz is coming. It's batted in the air. Jarvis Moss goes for it. Did he get it, or did Florida State get it? It looks like Chris Davis did come up with the catch, but it'll be 4th down.
3rd down and 12. Some teams choose to sit back and play soft. Not Florida. They're going to bring pressure. Brandon Seiler and Jarvis Herring coming. Mincy gets his hands on the football, and Chris Davis did a nice job of just making sure this ball wasn't intercepted. One up for the grab, going against Jarvis Moss, who's 6'6".
And here is the punt. A fair catch called by Chad Jackson at the 33-yard line.
I'm going to say this. Before this game's over, I think one of these teams is going to block a punt. Florida has been close. Florida State has blocked a couple in the last couple weeks. Somebody's going to block a kick.
CBS Sports coverage of the Home Depot SEC on CBS will continue after this word from your local station.
Take a look at our tools for success, brought to you by the Home Depot. The scoring drive for Florida started with a 23-yard completion to Cornelius, a nice mix of the run in there with Deshaun Wynn. Then a little rollout, moving Chris Leak out of the pocket, hits Chad Jackson. A couple plays later, hits him again for the touchdown. Great job of using formation to create a mismatch, and an excellent scoring drive that not only put points on the board, but took a lot of time off the clock as well for the Gators.
And Florida has the ball now once again with a 7-0 lead. First 2 drives, lost 9 yards. Last drive, they took it 71 yards, the touchdown toss to Chad Jackson. Here's Dallas Baker starts in motion. Handoff goes to Deshaun Wynn, one of a trio of running backs that Urban Meyer has used in this, his first season. We go back to the conversation, Todd, at the beginning of the afternoon of how significant this game becomes. Momentum and recruiting, I think, as well.
I think very important. And you know, you can see the intensity on the field. Both these teams playing hard. Both teams want to get that last taste of a loss out of their mouth from their last game out. And you're right, momentum. How you finish the season, how you go into the recruiting season. Both these schools recruit the same kids, and you can say, well, win or a loss in this game is not going to dictate where a kid signs, but it's going to have an impact in how they visit later on in the winter.
There's a late toss out to Deshaun Wynn, and that'll bring up a 3rd down and long. Well, didn't look pretty.
No, it didn't. Again, there's not nearly as much of the option aspect to this offense as there was early. And a lot of that is due to the fact that they just realized the personnel they have and the receivers that they have that are healthy, and Chris Leak, what his strengths are. They've taken a lot of that out. It's not all gone, but not nearly as much as there used to be.
Wynn in motion sets up alongside Chris Leak on 3rd and 14. Leak finds, oh, it's intercepted. Goes right into the hands of Kyler Hall. And he's got a first down for Florida State at the 27-yard line. Kyler Hall, number 41, from Live Oak, Florida, whose good friend plays safety for the Gators, Jarvis Herring. High school teammates, and Kyler Hall makes Chris Leak pass.
Well, here's Kyler Hall right here. Now, he got burnt for the touchdown, but he's going to come up with the interception. And this was a good job by Chris Leak trying to check it down to Wynn, but he overthrew him. He threw it too high, and Deshaun Wynn tipped the ball right into the hands of Kyler Hall. Chris Leak did a nice job of reading the defense and dumping it off, but he made a poor throw in trying to execute it.
On the turnover, 1st down and 10 with Weatherford changing the play. Coleman comes back. Booker is the tailback, and Booker gets the handoff about a yard. That is for Chris Leak only the 6th interception of the season. He began this year by throwing 117 passes without a pick, but that one poorly thrown. Only the 11th turnover of the year. They've only lost 4 fumbles, and Brandon Seiler, the middle linebacker, is the injured player. The sophomore from Orlando. While they check on him, we'll check in with Tim Brando.
All right, Bert, I believe Todd will notice this. The UConn quarterback, the South Florida quarterback, Pat Jolmas, didn't expect that snap to come as quickly as it did. It leads to a safety. UConn now up 9-0 as they move into the 2nd quarter. South Florida needs to win to set up that matchup with West Virginia.
Well, the other thing that I'm sure those South Florida ball carriers and receivers, you can't practice with a cold football unless you put them in the freezer. And when it's 32 degrees, that ball is more like a brick than it is like a pigskin.
Now Brandon Seiler will walk off with minimal assistance. Let's see if we can determine what happened.
Scrape into the outside, just kind of come down awkwardly, I think. Sudden change defensive situation right now for the Florida defense.
A little gimpy as he heads to the bench. Brandon Seiler, who's had a fine year. Sophomore from Orlando. 2nd down and 10. Double tight end set. And Weatherford will go for the spread. His senior center, David Castillo. Rutherford with time. He goes in the end zone. Double coverage. Incomplete. Intended for Greg Carr, the freshman from Reddick, Florida, who has caught 9 touchdown passes this year, but no receptions the last 2 weeks.
He's been bothered by a hip pointer, and this was a case where Drew Rutherford just threw it up there for him. Carr is 6'6". He's in coverage, but you figure a guy that tall that can jump, maybe he can go up and make a play. But good coverage. D. Webb over there to help out.
And here, Todd's another of those 3rd and long.
Yeah. 3rd and long against this defense, very difficult. They brought pressure the last 3rd and long. Jarvis Herring came in and forced a tip pass.
Time called.
I think Florida called this timeout.
They did.
From the sideline.
That is the first Gator timeout of the first half. They have 2 remaining. And the Seminoles will be looking at a 3rd and 10 and a 7-0 deficit when we return. If you missed any of Thursday's episode of Survivor, log on to CBS.com and see the show. And Thursday, be sure to catch the auction that can completely change the game. Survivor is TV's #1 reality show right here on CBS, America's #1 network.
I missed that episode.
I did too. So Seiler's back. I don't know if Gary Hogeboom is back. Brandon Seiler on the field, number 40. 3rd and 10. Weatherford under some pressure. Now under some more pressure. Heaves it up for grabs, incomplete. Boy, was he pursued. Brandon Seiler, Jeremy Mincy. And it was Mincy who got there first.
Well, Marcus Thomas is going to force him out of here. He's the first guy to show up, and then there's Seiler, and then there's Mincy who gets him on the ground. But again, nobody opened downfield for Weatherford initially, and then the pressure got to him. Good stop by the Florida defense after the turnover.
Sismazia will try the field goal block, and that one's picked up by Reggie Lewis. And here goes Lewis. No flags. Touchdown, Florida.
Marcus Thomas blocked an extra point, and D. Webb picked it up and ran it for 2 points. Today, Marcus Thomas blocks a field goal, and Reggie Nelson picks it up. This time, it's for a touchdown.
Reggie Lewis with the touchdown, and the extra point is up and good. 52-yard return, Reggie Lewis.
Here's Marcus Thomas right in the middle, going to come through on the inside. Jumps over the offensive line, gets his hand on the football, and Reggie Nelson is there for the scoop up.
He may have used his head.
Hand, head, whatever. It worked.
Tim Brando in New York. Coming up with the Geico Halftime Report, Archie Manning joins Spencer and me. We'll get you caught up on all of the scores, including the longest play from scrimmage ever given up by the Miami Hurricanes defense. Emmanuel Byers to Deion Williams, 86 yards. Virginia leading Miami 10-3 in the second. Now back to our game.
All right, Tim, thank you. Marcus Thomas with the block.
You know, I don't know why I know this, but I read that Marcus Thomas, when the season started, he was 285. Well, now they wanted him to gain weight, and he's now 305, and that extra weight around his midsection, he's nicknamed his belly Scoop. And he says that if he gets a sack, he credits Scoop with half the sack. So I'm guessing Scoop gets half that field goal block. But he likes it. He rubs his belly, pats it, you know, before big plays. I'm sure he probably patted his belly before that field goal attempt. And Scoop and him got up and blocked it.
You know, I really enjoy working with you, and I'm frightened that you know that story. Here's the kickoff and the fake reverse. It comes near side. Kenny O'Neill down at the 20, maybe the 21, and just a terrific play by Marcus Thomas, and a great bounce for Reggie Lewis.
Well, here again, here's Marcus and Scoop right in there, in the middle. And they're going to just leap between the Garden Center and get the block. Excellent execution on the block. A low kick because it was going to be a long field goal. That kick didn't have much height on it. And then Reggie Lewis scoops it and scores.
And on the sidelines, Marcus Thomas.
See if anybody hits his belly.
They left Scoop alone. Handoff, left side. Anton Smith, number 23, with the carry for 9 yards. Time now for the much anticipated Aflac trivia question of the week. Who was the Gator head coach in 1984 when Florida defeated the Big Three for the first time? Bobby Bowden, of course, came to Florida State in '76. Urban Meyer is the 7th head coach. Bobby Bowden has faced in this rivalry. 7. Anton Smith, that's close for the first down. That would be Georgia, Florida State, Tennessee.
The big 3. I think Florida State, you know, if you're Drew Weatherford, if you're the Seminole offense, and you got to stay with the run, because Leon Washington and Lorenzo Booker are 2 of the best players on your football team. So you don't want to get away from them. Take some pressure off your quarterback. Your wide receivers need to step up and make some plays. They haven't got any play down the field so far. Only 8 pass attempts, but nothing of significance down the field.
See what's been the result of the last 4 drives. First down and 10 here at the 31. Weatherford play fake. This time he has time, and he finds, oh no, he threw it behind his receiver at the 40-yard line. That's Willie Reed, number 26, and he was open. ACC standings, Florida State is already in despite 3 conference losses. Boston College tied for them right now, and for the first time they go to an ACC championship game. That's next week. Virginia Tech, Miami trailing, as Tim just told you. Virginia Tech plays tonight. Weatherford only 1 of his last 6 passes. Second down here. Right side, caught by Matt Henshaw, the tight end.
You know, it's interesting. When we talked to Bobby Bowden about that and about the championship game next week, and he said, you know, it always used to bother him when they used to play, and Steve Spurrier would say, well, this game's big, but the SEC championship is more important. We're more interested in winning that game and playing in that game. And it used to really offend Bobby Bowden. He said, what are you talking about? This is a big game. This is an in-state game. Well, now the shoe's on the other foot, because now the ACC has a championship game, and they play in it next week, and that game is more significant.
Still, second down.
Illegal shift and a penalty against Florida State. Bobby said, Riley, don't tell anybody in Tallahassee.
Yeah.
Might get me run out. I don't think so.
Well, you want to win the state championship. They beat Miami to open the season. If they beat Florida, they win the state championship, which is huge to the folks down here. But you're talking major dollars if you win the ACC championship and get into a BCS bowl.
I formation again for the Seminoles. 4-man rush. Pressure from the outside from Mincy, and the pass complete as Weatherford finds a receiver up at the 33-yard line. That's Donnie Carter, the backup tight end. Mincy getting good pressure from the outside.
Well, I just love watching Jeremy Mincy play this year. I mean, he's a guy that has played hard from the very beginning of the season. He's got a high energy motor, and they do a lot of things scheme-wise to get him freed up, to put him away from the tight end side, to get him out in space, and let him use that energy and that speed to rush the quarterback.
Well, you see that he is tied for the league, the team lead, 60 tackles with a linebacker, Earl Everett. Here's a play fake. Here comes Mincy, and Mincy runs into a teammate, and Earl Everett, with whom Jeremy Mincy is tied, makes the tackle, and Mincy is very slow getting up.
Well, this was a collision by the 2 defensive ends. It was Mincy and Jarvis Moss who met at the quarterback. I mean, they both whipped the tackles right off the snap. Mincy's coming from the left, Jarvis Moss is coming from the other side, and they smashed into each other. Mincy got the worst of that, and Earl Everett got the tackle on the quarterback.
Well, he has a chance to become the first defensive lineman to lead Florida in tackles in 26 years. Robin Fisher in 1979.
It's kind of amazing when you think about a defensive end leading a team in tackles. A lot of times they can go away from him, but he has great acceleration and speed and a nose for the football. He's been very, very active all year. And he stayed healthy. And right now, today, he's working on a new starting left tackle for Florida State. Ron Lunford is the starter in there for Corey Niblock, who was hurt on the last play of the game 2 weeks ago at Clemson. He injured his knee on the last play of the game. There was a celebration going on by the Clemson fans, and he was out there with a bad knee. Last play of the game, he's hurt, so a new left tackle today that's trying to block Jeremy Mincy.
Well, he took a heck of a jolt in that collision with Jarvis Moss.
You know what else happened? The play before that, Ray McDonald, who is trying to play, was down on the field and kind of hobbled off, and that's been a sad thing to watch, because Ray McDonald was off to a great start and injured his knee in the Tennessee game. He had surgery 2 days later on the 19th of September and came back the 29th of October, but he's not been the same.
McDonald, Mincy, and it appears Jeremy Mincy just a little headache. And so 4th down. Chris Hall is on to punt. And Chad Jackson will let it bounce. "34-yard punt for Chris Hall. Florida, with a 14-0 lead, has the ball back. Regional action tomorrow. Lead game in Kansas City. New England and Kansas City, then San Diego, Washington, Cleveland, Minnesota, Baltimore, Cincinnati. In the late game, Miami is at Oakland and Jacksonville at Arizona. It all begins with Greg and the gang back in our New York studios. Dan Marino, Shannon Sharp, Boomer Esiason. The NFL today, tomorrow, 12 noon Eastern time. 6:46 to go, first half. Here's Leak. Comes near side, Dallas Baker. Baker out to the 49-yard line.
Well, Dallas Baker working on J.R. Bryant, one of those young corners out there. Tall receiver. This is about the healthiest he's been in a month. Coming off that rib injury in the Georgia game. He's been very minimally used the last couple weeks. Only 3 catches in the last 2 ball games, but nice play right there.
He's on schedule to graduate, and if he does, he'll get an extra year of eligibility because he entered Florida as a partial qualifier. Had a year in prep school. Here's Leak. Finds a man at the 45 of Florida State. That's Chad Jackson again, the go-to guy. And Tracy Wolfson on the sideline telling us that Jeremy Mincy is just fine in that collision with Jarvis Moss.
You see Florida using some different shifts and motions, and the reason they're doing that is to keep the Florida State offense or defense off balance, not let them get their cleats planted in the ground and pin their ears back and come after the quarterback. You move, you shift, you show them different looks, and you make them look around and guess a little bit on where you're going to end up.
Billy Latsko starts in motion, now comes back and sets up right side. They hand it off to Keyston Moore with Latsko trying to lead the way, and that one good for negative yardage is Broderick Bunkley, number 52.
Now here's an example. You watch these guys moving and shifting. You show them one thing, so the defense gets set. Well, now you shift 3 guys, and then you're going to snap the ball as soon as they get set. So the defense has got to react to all that, and they've got to move to account for your players. It's just a way of not letting them get their cleats in the ground and really pin their ears back and go, because it's a very fast Florida State defense.
Chris Leak, 7 of 9. It's 3rd and 9 here. 3 men down for Florida State. Leak in trouble, pulls up, pumps, now really in trouble, and lets it go. He was being chased by Emmanuel Dunbar, number 91. It'll be 4th and 9.
Good coverage downfield, and you see that, Florida State, even though they're playing this game without their best pass rusher, Cameron Wembley, who's in street clothes, the team leader with 7.5 sacks, not playing today. They've had injuries to some of their other defensive ends, but they just kind of reload. They've got players. Mike DeGore said the jersey numbers are different, but the players look the same on their defensive line. They just keep getting players.
James Smith will snap it back. Eric Wilbur's third punt. They come after him. I like your warning. This one over the head and into the end zone. Touchback.
Well, Florida State has had 5 block punts this season. They had 2 against North Carolina State and 1 in their last game against Clemson that was recovered for a touchdown. Roger Williams, the starting free safety, is going to be the guy that gets closest to this one from the outside. Almost there. We've seen a blocked field goal, and both these teams have the capability of blocking a punt as well.
Touchback, and Weatherford and the Seminoles come back on the field, trailing by 14 with 4:27 to go in the first half. Gators might be blitzing. They are. Here comes Mincy. There's Joe Cohen and Mincy, and Weatherford, as a flag is dropped back at the 7.
Well, they're having trouble with the defensive ends. That's for sure. Again, you got a new starting left tackle. You've got some other injury problems with this offensive front. And you've got fast defensive ends playing with a home crowd helping them.
Incidental face mask, number 57 on the defense. The penalty is 5 yards from the previous stop, and still first down.
Mincy beat Ron Lunford. Cohen is chasing also. I think the face mask happened before that.
Yeah, it was Joe Cohen. We caught just the end of it. First down and 5 after the penalty. Hand off. This is Lorenzo Booker, number 28. And take another look at it, just because it did result in 5-yard mark-off. There's Joe Cohen, number 20.
He came from the other side. And again, the problem for Florida State right now is they can't block the defensive ends. Whether it's Cohen, Mincy, Jarvis Moss. Weatherford has been sacked twice. He's been pressured 4 times. He's had a pass knocked down.
Well, they have made one change. Mario Henderson, number 75, is now in at left tackle, replacing Ron Lunford. Here's the pass. Oh, my goodness, it's intercepted. Picked off at the 34 by Avery Atkins, the freshman, as Greg Carr had it bounce up, and Atkins gets his first interception as a Gator.
Well, this goes in the books as an interception for the quarterback, but this is Greg Carr just taking his eyes off the football and thinking about turning upfield, and he didn't secure the catch, and Atkins is able to fall into the interception. A good throw by Weatherford. Carr just turned upfield a little too soon without the football, and get the Florida Gators now in excellent field position.
17 interceptions by the Florida State quarterbacks. And Avery Atkins, a true freshman from Daytona Beach. I guess at this point you don't necessarily refer to a player as a true freshman. He's in his 11th game. And they are reviewing the play upstairs.
I think the review is to see whether Atkins had the ball, caught the ball, or trapped it on the deflection here.
Looks pretty good.
Yeah, looks like a catch. So one thing the Florida defense has done extremely well, forced turnovers. Coming into the ball game, plus 16 in turnover ratio. Best in the SEC, 3rd best in the country. And that happens by protecting the football on offense and then knocking it loose on defense. I think he got both hands underneath the football there.
Joe Delaney is the replay official. This one appears to be a relatively easy decision.
And we're talking about the turnovers. Ironically, the game they lost last week at South Carolina, you look at the numbers, how they lost that game. They only allowed 245 yards of offense. South Carolina's quarterback was 7 for 17.
After further review, the play stands as called on the field. It's an interception.
But the one thing they didn't do in that game is they didn't force a turnover. The only game this season that the Florida defense did not force a turnover, and they lost to South Carolina.
Avery Atkins gets his first career interception, and the Gators get the ball at the 34-yard line with a 14-point lead.
To take a shot at the end zone right here. After the turnover, little play action.
Dallas Baker comes in motion. There's a play fake, little hitch out to the left side. Chad Jackson to the 30-yard line, perhaps the 29. Buster Davis, number 7, the middle linebacker, with the tackle. And time now to answer our
Aflac
trivia question of the week. Who was the Gator coach in '84 when Florida defeated the Big Three rivals for the first time? And the answer is Galen Hall, who was the interim head coach back then, nicknamed Buddha.
back when the hats of brims were big back in the day.
Some people still wear them that way. Second down and 5. Reverse, trouble, Jamil Cornelius. They lost a lot of yardage.
Yeah, good defense by Florida State. Their backs against the wall after the turnover. They're down 2 touchdowns. Florida trying to get a little tricky on the reverse, and Florida State not buying it. Staying right at home on the backside and then using their speed at that linebacker position to get a loss of yardage.
Florida State second in the country behind Nebraska in tackles for loss this year. Mickey Andrews in his 20th season as head coach, or defensive coordinator, I beg your pardon. And the first recipient of the Frank Broyles Assistant Coach of the Year Award back in 1996. Timeout, Gators. Time called with 2 minutes and 7 seconds to go in the first half of play. Florida leads FSU 14-0.
Welcome back, 14-0 Gators. This rivalry even extends all the way across the world. Several U.S. Army personnel, many who are Florida State fans, are watching live today from Afghanistan. Lieutenant Colonel Scott Clotfelter is one who is definitely keeping an eye on this one. He's a Florida State grad, and guys, his wife and son are in the stands watching today.
That's terrific, Tracy. Thank you. And our thanks to the men and women of our armed forces serving our country throughout the world. 3rd and 14. And Leak alone 5 yards back. 3-man rush. Chris Leak, quarterback draw, gets by the umpire and is tackled at the 32-yard line. And the clock continues to unroll. Under 2 minutes to go. Florida State at Florida, the 50th meeting. 2 of them have come in the Sugar Bowl since 1958. And the Gators lead at 14-0. They got a pass from Chris Leak to Chad Jackson, then a blocked field goal, Marcus Thomas, and it was into the arms of Reggie Lewis. He took off, ran 52 yards. Those are the 2 touchdowns, and here is a long field goal by Chris Hetland. He's only missed 1 this year. This from 48. Is it enough? And the answer is
That's because his long was a 47, and that was a 48-yarder, and he missed it by a yard.
So Hetland, whose previous miss this season was from 26 yards against Vanderbilt, just short.
Well, now we've seen both defenses with a big stop after a quick turnaround and a turnover come up. Again, you've got the 8th best defense in the country with Florida. Florida State, the 10th best defense in the country, both doing their job after a turnover.
Hetland now 10 of 12 for the year. First down and 10. Florida State, 1:23 to go. Remember that Florida State used 2 timeouts on his first 2 possessions of the first quarter. So they have 1 timeout remaining. Weatherford sacked. That's his 3rd sack today. Jarvis Moss gets this one.
Well, they double-teamed Mincy and single-blocked Moss, and Moss got the sack. They're going to use an extra back over here on Mincy, but Moss is going to beat the right tackle and come in for the sack. Actually, they had a back on his side as well, but he didn't do a very good job. And Jarvis Moss, who leads this team in sacks, comes up with another one. That's his 7th on the season.
First 7 possessions. 4 punts, a blocked field goal, lost it on downs, and an interception.
Well, there's their last timeout. And again, the play clock, they have not been very efficient in terms of getting the plays into Drew Weatherford and getting them called. Whether that's the sidelines problem or Drew Weatherford's problem, but they've wasted 2 timeouts because of it.
Coming up at halftime, we'll head back to New York for the Geico Halftime Report. Tim will be joined by Spencer Tillman and Archie Manning. I'll get you up to date on all the scores and highlights as this regular season winds down in the 2005 season. 41 seconds to go before the break, 2nd and 17. They'll keep it on the ground. Mincy reaches out, and he might have another face mask call. Marcus Thomas stole the ball, but the ball had been whistled dead. And I think it's Mr. Mincy again.
And I think Bobby Bowden's thinking, we got to get in the locker room and figure out how to block these defensive ends, because if we can't block them, we have no chance in the second half. 3 sacks today for Florida. That gives them 30 for the season, which is the most.
Foul, face mask, 15 yards on the defense. Penalty 15 yards from the previous spot, automatic first down.
It's the most sacks for a Florida defense since 2001 when they had 30. So a chance to even better that in the second half, but
now they did not signify an individual. I thought it was Mincy, but not so sure. There comes the flag. And that looked like, well, obviously that was after the face mask, but it was the 15-yard variety. A first down at the 40. They will keep it on the ground. Jarvis Herring comes up to force Leon Washington inside, and that should be the final play of the first half. The Gators get a touchdown toss. Chris Leak. A blocked field goal. Marcus Thomas returned 52 yards by Reggie Lewis. And fine defensive play with 3 sacks, all of which leads to a 14-0 Gator lead at the break. Let's go down to Tracy, who's with Bobby Bowden.
Coach, you told us this week that protecting the quarterback was going to be key, but you have not been able to do that. What adjustments do you need to make?
That's the biggest thing right now. If we can protect our quarterback, we're getting some people open. We cannot throw the ball to them. If we don't correct that, it's going to be pretty daggone rough. The running game is going better than I thought, but anybody can tell you got to protect your quarterback.
Thanks a lot. Good luck.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. That's the end of the first half with Florida leading 14-0. Let's go to Tim Brando in our New York studio.
Thanks, Vern. Coming up on the Geico Halftime Report, Archie Manning joins Spencer and me. We'll have all of today's scores and highlights, including Iowa State falling short of the title game for a 2nd straight year because of an overtime loss. After this word from your local station.
CBS Sports presents the Geico Halftime Report. Geico.com. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Geico Halftime Report. I'm Tim Brando with the score in Gainesville, Florida, leading Florida State 14-0. I'm joined by Spencer Tillman and our special guest, Archie Manning. You know, I talked to Bobby Bowden earlier this week. I'm sympathetic to his plight. Their offense is bad.
Well, the numbers tell it all.
Yeah.
5 for 12. 20 yards passing in the first half.
Florida State can't block anybody up front, but Florida has not a lot to be excited about, minus 4 yards rushing, so they've got issues as well. They can't rely on Chad Jackson's offensive touchdown and special teams stepping up in one play for them. They got to get their run game working.
All right, elsewhere, you know, it's amazing what can happen. Over again, off the backup.
Yeah, off the bench, Kansas quarterback Brian Luke, Dexter Fields tying it at 21 with a minute left in regulation.
In overtime, Iowa State kicker Brett Culbertson wide right on a 40-yard field. He missed, think about it, they missed one in regulation against Missouri last year. They went into overtime, lost it there. You see the emotions. And then Scott Webb will kick the game winner in the first overtime, 34 yards. Colorado owes the Fighting Manginos a thank you card. They're going to the Big 12 title game. Spencer, you know, what do you make of this situation in the Big 12 North?
Well, it's Alpha Week. Let's put it that way. And you talk about the coaches in Arkansas. We mentioned them defected and perhaps moving up. I think it's an absolutely positive situation for them. That 4-7 record in the SEC is 8-3 in the Big 12 North. That would be an ideal move.
And
for
a lot of fans would like to see Arkansas. A lot of the Arkansas fans would like to see that happen, Archie.
You know, Colorado, yeah, they'd like to see it happen. Colorado, they don't have a chance against Texas. Matter of fact, they should pick an all-star team from the North Division of the Big 12. Send them to Houston to play Texas.
That's a novel idea by Mr. Manning. Elsewhere, Virginia taking on Miami. Kyle Wright, who struggled last week, hits Sonoris Morris for an 18-yard strike. Miami has 82 yards after after the catch. A lot of yak time for the Canes today.
Contact.
Coming behind Virginia, 15-10 is the score. They missed their most recent extra point opportunity. The running of the Bulls in Connecticut. Rentschler Field of Sight. That's right, East Hartford, Connecticut. After a touchdown by the Bulls, Darius Butler set sail. He's going to go 90 yards. And by the way, UConn would miss the extra point. Well, the Fighting Huskies, after going Division I AA for so long, coming back in Division I and in the Big East, up 15-7 on South Florida. They get West Virginia next week. They want that game to matter. Speaking of the Big East, Syracuse could go 1-10 for the first time ever. Louisville quarterback Brian Brom doing the job here.
I say it every week. Good-looking sophomore quarterback, 19-yarder, Montrell Jones.
They think he might be a real good one before it's said and done for Bobby Petrino's team. Into the SEC we go. Tennessee and Kentucky. And finally, Curtis Pulley going to go.
Curtis Pulley intercepted here by Justin Harrell. A little hot trick there. 1 out of 12, 2-11 in progress. He stole it right from him, didn't he?
Eric Ainge with 2 touchdown passes in the victory today. Ole Miss, sorry, Archie. 28-14. Jarius Norwood over 100 yards rushing with 3 touchdowns for the Bulldogs today in the Egg Bowl. Maryland and North Carolina State. This is Sam Hollenbach. He's going to be intercepted by Marcus Hudson. He'll take it back. 27 yards for the score. NC State built the lead. So here's what happened. NC State becomes bowl eligible while Maryland finishes 5-6 for Ralph Friedgen. Bedlam series, you ask? Tell me the story, Spencer.
Brett Bomar here. You don't think James Moses is going to find the promised land? He didn't make it in, did he? Oh, yes, he did. I'll 6-year on that one. Had him up 21-0 for the Sooners.
100th renewal of that one. Oklahoma trying to determine which bowl they're going to go to in the Big 12. Well, coming up, we'll take a look ahead to next Saturday's SEC championship game matchup between Georgia and LSU, and the Geico halftime report continues. Welcome back. Be sure to join us next Saturday at 2:30 Eastern for the Home Depot College Football on CBS. It's one of the greatest rivalries in all of sports, the 106th Army-Navy game. That'll be followed at 6 o'clock Eastern by the SEC Championship game presented by Dr. Pepper. Number 13, Georgia against third-ranked LSU. And you know, I got to tell you, fellas, other than Jay Cutler, who may be the best quarterback in the Southeastern Conference from Vanderbilt, these 2 quarterbacks, DJ Shockley and Jamarcus Russell, Archie, may be the 2 that I would most want to lead me into a title game in the SEC.
Well, I'd go to battle with DJ Shockley. What a great story. Of course, he's highly recruited, but he sits 4 years behind David Green. So actually, he's got a minimal amount of experience. He didn't leave. He stayed at Georgia. And Spencer, I think what's so great about him, he's played like a senior this year.
That's
18 touchdowns, 4 interceptions.
Talking about another underclassman that plays well, Jamarcus Russell. Watching him operate yesterday in an outstanding contest against Arkansas. One of the things this big 6'6", 255 young quarterback does for you folks, he is accurate. And that's something you don't expect from a young quarterback. He's gotten better as the season has gone along. And when you consider that they're last in the SEC in takeaways, his role becomes that much important. He's not getting many opportunities from the defense.
Rest assured, LSU is rooting for Georgia tonight against Georgia Tech. They need a 2-loss team in that title game. And the football action continues tomorrow with the NFL on CBS. It's regional action. Many of you will see the Patriots and the Chiefs with the Chargers and the Redskins. And it all begins at noon Eastern with the NFL today. Coming up, Tony Barnhart rejoins us with a report from Gainesville right after this. Welcome back. We're joined live once again by Tony Barnhart from the Florida State-Florida game. Tony, do you see any chance of Florida State coming back in this game?
Well, Timmy B, there's a reason that Florida State is 11th in the ACC in rushing, and there's a reason they're not coming back in this game. I've been watching Florida State for a long, long time. This is the thinnest, least talented Florida State line I have seen in almost 20 years. They cannot block these guys. One other point, Kyler Hall had an interception for Florida State in the first half. That's 8 for Florida State this season, but 0 from the cornerbacks. Their corners cannot cover the Florida wide receivers.
Thanks, Tony. Great job today. Great job all year. Thank you so much. You know, Archie, this speaks to the point you were making earlier on the college football today. In the glory years, he could always plug in talent after injuries. Not now.
And they always had those NFL-type corners. Now, they may never have a Deion Sanders again, but there's no Terrell Buckleys or anything close now.
When was the last time you would say that Florida State didn't have athleticism on defense, particularly at the corner spot?
Imagine this, fellas. there could be a 4-loss team winning the Big 12.
Wow.
There could be a 4-loss team winning the ACC. Thanks for watching the Geico Halftime Report. Coming up the second half of Florida State, Florida on CBS, America's #1 network.
CBS Sports presents the Geico Halftime Report. Geico.com. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.